All righty. Well, I will call the meeting to order. It is 11:30. Okay. And I will call for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. All right. It's properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay. And I see nor do I hear any objections. So we have approved the agenda for today. And the next order of business would have been the minutes. I'm going to defer the approval of the minutes for the February the 3rd meeting. And we will take that up on our next meeting next week. Okay. So now, Marcus, you have a request for our approval for an extension.
Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is what we do every year. Our cases are under a continuing agreement to extend the time to investigate. And so I'm going to share my screen. So I think, you know, Arsema, John, I think you know what this is about, but the rest may not. So hold on, let me share. Okay. I'm not sure what you're seeing. Are you seeing
Nothing yet.
oh, really? Okay. Let me stop. Um, you know what? I don't actually need to share. What I'm will explain to you is that um we have a request for an extension of time to investigate all cases in our caseload from March 31st, 2026 through March 31st, 2027. So by statute, we have 180 days to investigate all claims, but subject to extension, and that's
Okay.
extension by the commissioners. And so we deal with all the cases at once a year, typically. And so that would be the request to enable our office to continue to investigate cases beyond the 180 days. So that would be the request, and I can give more information, but that's essentially what we do every year.
Okay. All right. I'm clear, and I'll just make sure Ray, being the other new commissioner, Ray, you're clear on what we're doing. You can just nod your head if we're good.
Yes.
Okay. So I see there is an understanding of the motion. So then I'll entertain a motion that we extend all cases uh, that we need to investigate uh, March the 1st of 2026 through February 28th or 29th of 2027.
Yeah, let me clarify. So the
Okay.
the the, the previous year's
Timeline.
extension runs until March 31st,
Okay.
2026. So we're extending that deadline from March 31st, 2026 to March 31st, 2027.
Okay. So
Yes.
the deadline is correction to the motion I'll entertain is deadline of March the 31st, 2027.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion? All right. It's been properly moved. Is there a second? Okay. I see a second. Uh, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay. All right. Then it is unanimous and the extension is granted for the cases. Okay. And so with that, there being no further business, we are ready to go over to Marcus, to the council for update on cases.
Good morning, Commissioner. So I am also requesting commission action on a couple of docketed cases. Kawatachi on behalf of the complaint filed by Chanel Diedrichs versus ODE Builders, docket number 25002 ESHRET. This case was docketed originally on August 25th, 2025. And so by administrative rule, we're supposed to hold a contested case hearing within 180 days. So for this case, it would expire on February 23rd, 2026. There's been some unforeseen illnesses, with the parties and the hearings examiner. So they're requesting an extension of time to hold the contested case hearing. The hearing is tentatively rescheduled contingent on this extension being granted by the commission for March 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we are requesting for good cause a 6-month extension of time to hold the contested case hearing, just in case anything else comes up. But we anticipate it being completed by, mid-March.
Okay, commissioners, I'll entertain a motion for a 6-month extension in said case.
Grant extension.
All right, is there a second? And I see a second. All right, with the 2 seconds, then this particular extension is granted for 6 months. Okay, next request for extension.
All right, so in Kawatachi, on behalf of the complaint filed by Frank Resurreccion versus Case Drive-In, docket number 25003-ED. So this case was docketed on August 26, 2025, and the original 6-month deadline would have been, February 24th, 2026. The hearing is tentatively rescheduled contingent on this extension again, and that hearing date would be March 31st. So again, it's not a long extension, but there is a request for a 6-month extension just in case to hold the hearing. There were some discovery issues that came up, and so they wanted to make sure that they completed discovery, in a timely manner, but also being aware that there is a deadline coming up. They wanted to make sure they would be able to complete discovery and hold the contested case hearing. So again, a 6-month extension for this case to be completed for good cause.
Okay, commissioners, is there a motion?
I so moved.
Extension. All right, it's properly moved, seconded.
Second.
All right, I was doubly seconded, meaning that it is unanimous. And so this particular extension is granted for 6 months. Okay, with that, we're going to go into our legislative session, and council, will we be following the same order as the handout, as in the agenda, or are we a little bit moving from?
No, if that's all right with everyone, following the board packet, it
Okay.
should be the same order as on the agenda, but there might be a little bit discrepancy. But
Okay.
I'm seeing HB 2541.
Okay.
All right, so House Bill 2541 relating to discrimination prohibits discrimination on a person's immigration status. It would amend chapter 368, 378, which is discrimination in employment, and 489, which is public accommodations discrimination. This bill recognizes that Hawaii is one of the most diverse states in the US, with immigrants making up 25% or about 20% of the population. It states that verification of immigrant status, if required by federal law, would not violate this statute. So staff recommendation would be to support and note that chapter 515, which also prohibits discrimination, but in housing, is not included in this bill, and we're not quite sure whether or not that's intentional, but we would, provide comments about that as well. But it would just amend our statutes, prohibiting discrimination based on immigration status.
Okay, so commissioners, I'll entertain a motion for support with comments pertaining to the fact that the housing discrimination provision is not included. Is there a motion?
So moved with comments.
Okay. Second? Oh,
Second.
I have been doubly seconded, making it unanimous for us to support with comments pertaining to discrimination in housing not being included in this bill. Next.
Right. So the next bill is Senate Bill 2868 relating to healthcare. So this bill expands protections established under Act 2, Session Laws of Hawaii 2023 for gender affirming healthcare services. It establishes protections against abusive litigation and clarifies when disclosure of protected health information is permitted. Staff recommendation is to support.
Okay, commissioners, is there a motion for support?
So move.
All right, a second, please.
Seconded.
Okay, we're properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Okay, so then this is also approved for support. Senate Bill 2869.
SB 2869 is relating to mental health. It prohibits conversion therapy for persons of all ages and has a interesting contingent language on it if a certain case is overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. So I'll talk a little bit. Chiles versus Salazar. It talks about free speech. So the exemption would be about pure talk therapy is a form of pure speech, and that would be the exemption to this, but it basically would prohibit, conversion therapy for persons of all ages, not just under 18. Staff recommendation is to support.
Okay, commissioners, questions or concerns? None. Motion to support.
So moved.
Okay, it's properly moved. Are there second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Okay, all right. Then we are unanimous in 2869 support. We're moving on to 2870.
Senate Bill 2870 is relating to the Hawaii State Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Plus Commission. It would expand the commission's membership from 8 voting members to 11. Staff recommendation is to support this. Adding additional members increases the diversity of perspectives and representation. So we would support it.
Okay. Question on that. Does that mean that there would be 3 additional members coming onto this commission and with voting rights, or would they take some of the non-voting members and grant them voting? That question was kind of just raised.
That's a good question, and I'm not sure. I know they do add a voting member for, a younger demographic, but I'm not sure if they reassign certain non-voting memberships. It doesn't look like it, but so, staff can correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, it looks like the other 2 are appointed by the House of Representatives and Senate President.
Okay, so it will expand then
Right.
everyone. It will expand out totally everyone. It just won't give voting privileges to some of the existing ones that aren't able to right now. Okay. All right. Commissioners, what be your will and pleasure?
So I have a question. So it would expand the number of commissioners, and they would be self-identified as LGBTQ plus. Or it just anybody? I mean, you're expanding the commission of which, as you referred to, Connie, it would
provide for representation
Provide for greater diversity.
of perspectives. Yeah, and I think they just have to have, you know, similar to our commission, a background in supporting, you know, LGBTQ plus causes, you know, being part of the community. But you know, I will say I'm not an expert on what would qualify them to be a member of this commission.
Okay. So I think there is a bit of consternation with respect, at least on this commissioner's part, um, for this expansion, if it is not to preserve and protect the true work of the commission. For example, the legislatures, I think you said that the two of these individuals will be appointed by the legislature, as is protocol. However, if those individuals appointed are not declarative advocates, which I would hope they wouldn't do, I'm just wondering how we preserve the intent of the advocacy if it's not codified somewhere. And that may or may not be our space. So I'm kind of open to some comments, or if the proposed bill does not codify how we will maintain that protection, I think that it warrants us, as we did with the previous bill, noting that it did not include the housing. I think that we would do this with some comments. Does that make sense, commissioners?
I would support the intent of the bill, but I think it's kind of difficult to kind of tease out whether or not a person is going to be an advocate for LGBTQ. And the other issue I have is, you know, why would you specifically mention LGBTQ plus and not Native Hawaiians or other groups that aren't represented on the commission right now?
So that was kind of the premise of my questioning. What is the intent of the expansion? I mean, the commission has a lot of people on it. They just don't have the right to vote. So if we're not, you know, clear on what's happening here, I'm not sure where we if we're going to get where we want to get.
Hi, Chair. If I may, this is Heather McVeigh,
Sure.
Deputy Executive Director. And I would just, to add to your decision-making for your consideration, that the Civil Rights Commission staff has been invited to speak as a guest at the LGBTQ plus commission created by the state. And my impression, although again, I agree reading the bill, it doesn't really specify that these individuals that are chosen or nominated or appointed would have some kind of demonstrated commitment to furthering justice for the LGBTQ community. My experience with our presentation there, and then knowing the leadership there, that does seem to be their mission and how they present. So perhaps we support with comments that, or support the intent with comments indicating that you know, an effort should be made to ensure that these folks have a demonstrated commitment to justice and equality for the LGBTQ community.
I like that.
Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Hence my movement towards us having comments, and then I appreciate you helping us articulate appropriate comments, which I'm sure staff will get. So with that, commissioners, are we ready to decide? What is your will and pleasure?
Yeah, I move to support either with or without comments. I think that it would be inherent in that, whoever they pick is in furtherance of the mission of the commission. I think they're being purposely vague here by not adding requirements that may, toe the line and add some gray area. So, I'm actually comfortable with it the way it is, but, I move to support.
Okay. All right. So for clarity, is that a motion with or without comments?
I guess mine would be without comments.
Without, so as is.
Yeah, I would prefer as is.
Okay. Um, I don't necessarily see support for that. So I'm going to say that that motion fails for lack of a second. I'll now entertain a motion for support with comments. Okay, I
Move
see
to
a
support with
motion.
comments.
Is there a second for support with comments?
Second.
Okay, so it's properly moved and seconded that we support with comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. All those that oppose have the same right. Okay, all right. I have one opposition with understanding. Okay, all right. So the motion is adopted though, and moving forward, and we do understand your expression of your reservation there, Ray. Okay, we're moving on to Senate Bill 2853. 2853.
All right, SB 2853 relating to service animals. This would require sellers and providers of emotional support animals and issuing disability need verifications to also provide written notice of applicable laws and other requirements. We've seen bills like this in various forms pop up over the years. Last year, we had a position to support intent with comments. There's already existing law that makes it a civil violation to knowingly misrepresent a service animal. So there is an umbrella term of assistance animal where part of it that falls underneath is service animals, but also for fair housing. In fair housing contexts, there's emotional support animals. So there's often confusion as to where ADA might apply and then also Fair Housing Act. We are not sure this is the way to clarify the issue. It would require, if a physician certifies an animal as an emotional support animal, they would have to provide information that it's not a service animal. So we're not quite sure that this would achieve its purpose of, to make it clear that emotional support animals are not service animals. But so we would recommend supporting intent with comments.
Okay, the chair has reservations here because I think, and you guys are the lawyers, so you straighten me out here. One, their quote unquote is not a requirement for that particular animal to have any declaration. And except it be an employer, there's really only two questions in a public accommodation that can be asked. And so, again, I'll defer here to the lawyers in the room. I have grave concerns about codifying something that may or may not really add clarity to that. And I say that because there's cost associated with these particular issuances of papers, certificates, vesting, and all of that. And that may or may, as I understand, is nowhere contained in any statute as a requirement. So I'm concerned with the direction that this is going. Now I will yield to the lawyers who are probably a little bit more knowledgeable than this layman to clarify my concerns.
No, we agree with all of that. You know, there is no requirement of certification for service animals or, you know, a vest requirement or anything like that. So we are also wondering if this is a solution to a problem that may not necessarily exist, just because there is pushback on emotional support animals, and sellers of vests, and confusion as to whether or not that is required, which it's not. So we understand why they might want to encourage educating the public, but we also, like you mentioned, worry about confusing the issue more and then the burden on individuals for having to provide or to comply with this law when it's already a civil violation to misrepresent an animal as a service animal.
Tis true. I also have concerns that this may infer that a person will have to incur an additional financial burden that is not required by law right now. So commissioners, I'm not in favor of this particular proposed legislation because I think it creates more confusion than it does to resolve what is not really a clear issue. And I yield to others.
If I may offer some comments here. Um, we submitted testimony last year, as Chief Counsel mentioned. We did label it support the intent with comments. I think we easily could have said oppose, but we want to
Hmm.
be somewhat sensitive as
Comments.
far as you know, whether we don't want to necessarily come out in opposition to an idea that there should be clarification about assistance animals and what's needed. But the concerns you raised here are contained within our testimony last year, and so I do think that number one, there is no requirement that any assistance animal have excuse me, verification or a vest or anything that a certificate that is contemplated here. I do understand your concern about implying that such a thing would be needed and there'd be an expense associated with that. And so to me, that is a valid concern. Um, and I also think that there really is no animal that's sold as an emotional support animal. I mean, they're just animals. And so what role they serve comes later after they, the acquisition of the animal. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that you know, obviously it's commissioner's uh call on this. And so I think whether we label it opposition or support intent with comments, to me is we're actually saying the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was actually just going to raise that because this looks very familiar.
Mhm.
And I recall the discussion from last year. And I think the issue is, I mean, it's probably a non-issue, but to the extent that there are people selling these things, it's a disclosure issue, right? And what it is that you are selling. Um, so while I agree with all the concerns, I think the intent, if you're gonna sell these things, you have to disclose that you didn't properly train them as service animals. Which it seems to me, I mean, while it may not really be an issue, I kind of support the intent behind it.
Okay. And would that also have an expression of what is actually required by law?
I
So
think
I
that was
mean,
kind of, yeah, that was kind of the comments, right?
mhm, right. Okay. So John or Ray, would you care to opine?
I think it's not a cut and dry issue. I think it's kind of complicated, and I know that it's been exploited before it's been abused. So I guess I'm at this point. I would abstain.
Okay. Ray?
I guess I would support with comments.
Okay. All right. Well, I will entertain a motion, commissioners,
I'll
for
move
the way
for
forward.
support with comments.
All right. So, Ray, is that your second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. So it's properly moved and seconded, and John is abstaining. So then that will still give us a majority. And the comments, I think that staff can ensure that our points being raised are truly presented. And you would think, and I'm just being a little pontificating here, you would think that if this didn't make it last year and for all of the concerns raised, that you would bring back clarity this year. So that's my point. We'll move on to Senate Bill 20. It is approved with support with comments. We'll move on to Senate Bill 2932.
Senate Bill 2932. This requires that new state building projects begun after July 1st, 2026 to include one universal changing accommodation and family assisted use public restrooms where feasible. Staff recommendation is to support improving accessibility, especially in state buildings, benefits everybody and would support freedom of movement for individuals with disabilities who may require assistance.
Okay. All right. Seems straightforward in the way of moving forward in the 21st century here. So, commissioners, is there support?
Move to support.
Okay. Is that a second? And it's properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Okay. All right. It is unanimous for 2932 for support. We're moving on to Senate Bill 2876.
All right, Senate Bill 2876 relating to natural hair braiding. This would exempt natural hair braiders from certain licensing requirements under certain conditions. Staff recommendation is to support because requiring licensing in the same regard from the practice of cosmetology and barbering might cause an undue burden for those who engage in this cultural practice.
Okay. All right. And just to be clear, we're speaking more of the cousins, sisters, aunties who spend somewhat of 12 to 30 hours doing certain styles and are compensated for that because that is more of an extension of a cultural practice and design and not a professional career. The question would be those individuals who, well, I guess if you do that plus other styles, then this would not exempt you. It would be solely those who do this style of hair braiding.
That's our understanding as well. And it goes into, specifics as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Commissioners, is there support?
So move to support.
Okay. Seconds?
Second.
All righty. It's properly moved and seconded. Those in favor? signify by saying aye. All right, and it is unanimous. Okay, we're moving on to Senate Bill 3200.
Right, Senate Bill 3200 relating to culture would establish Immigrants' Day on October 28th as a state holiday and would change Statehood Day from a state holiday to a day of recognition. So Immigrants' Day on October 28th would be, you know, a day off, state offices are closed, and then Statehood Day would just be a day of recognition, but not observed with closures. Staff recommendation is to support.
Okay, so just for clarity, all right, Statehood Day is not October the 28th. Uh, October 28th is traditionally Indigenous People Day, Columbus Day, federal, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Right. And so we would move Statehood Day from August and change it and move down to Immigrants Day, October 28th. Now, this has another bill in the House, correct? Which with a different name or a similar bill. And forgive me if because of the multiple hats that I wear, that I am referring to another bill. There is
Um,
another bill and it has a different name. It doesn't say
yeah.
Immigrants Day.
So this is actually, yeah, interesting. So there is another bill in the House, House Bill 2045 we discussed last week. It's also regarding Statehood Day, but it would, instead of eliminating it as a recognized holiday, it would rename it La Hoi Hoi. Yeah. So it would recognize the Hawaiian history of, you know, our state, and not talk about, you know, us it not celebrating statehood, but would celebrate the Hawaiian culture. So it would actually preserve, I believe, the date, but just rename it as recognition of the Hawaiian history of our state. So it's a little bit different.
I see the difference now. The difference is the name, and the difference is moving it from the date Hawaii became a state down to the federal holiday right now in October. So I don't see an issue with support on this. At the end of the day, one or the other is the hopeful piece. Okay, is there a motion for
Can I ask a
support? Go
question?
ahead. Sure.
Because I think we've had this discussion before on holidays and whether it falls within John knows because he was here the last time we had this conversation because we've had every year bills on naming holiday making holidays, right? And whether support you know one group over the other and how we came to determination that this should fall within our jurisdiction.
I think that's a good question, and we've always had this discussion, but I think
Yeah, because every year there's all new
yeah,
holidays.
of different cultures, and there's
Yeah, for
really no
cultural.
way we can address every single one. I
Yeah.
think for both of the bills that we've talked about, you know, recognition of Hawaiian culture, I feel like that is important, and we should, you know, at least weigh in on those issues. And Immigrants Day, I also feel like that's something that impacts us as a state as well. So I feel comfortable supporting this one, just with our large population of immigrants, especially with what's going on around the country. You know, it's important to recognize the importance of immigrants to our state and nation.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like policy decisions that someone other than myself should be making. Because yeah, and like you know, last year was celebrating Chinese history, for example, right? So how do we pick one over the other? And I don't really feel like that's my place to pick one over the other.
I feel like Immigrants Day is kind of broad, you know, we're all immigrants ultimately. So I feel like but you know, someone else can try to make an argument for
Well,
Wayne.
Yeah, and then but I guess the problem I have is if we do that, then we have to comment on all of these other
Right.
bills that want to designate special holidays.
Hmm.
And then how do I, again, then
Yeah.
we come up to the situation, how do I pick one over the other?
I do
So it
think
is
it's
a slippery
tricky.
slope. Go ahead,
Yeah, I was going to
Marcus.
say that in years past, we have had this discussion, and when we have really supported new holidays, for example, Juneteenth was one that we weighed in on in strong support because I think that ties into historically our mission, which is to eliminate discrimination. I mean, talk about slavery as being a form of discrimination. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that Immigrants Day maybe broadly connects to our mission, which is to eliminate discrimination against, you know, groups on the basis of ancestry or national origin. Um, it is a slippery slope, though. I can't deny that.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. I do see one of the bills as having more a deeper reach in the Civil Rights Commission than the other. Uh, the moving the name to more Hawaiian is probably going to resonate more and probably be an easier piece than kind of just responding in the moment to October 28th. So we shall see. At any rate, I think given the caution of a reach that we can all express, we can find out a basis for us advising on this. And so I'll entertain a motion, commissioners, your will and pleasure.
I just want to clarify so that there's Immigrants Day, there's the Hawaiian History Day, there's Indigenous Peoples Day, and with the Immigrants Day and Hawaiian History Day, is it an either or kind of thing? So there are two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate. So it's either Immigrants Day or Hawaiian History Day.
I think that's going to be up to the legislature to figure out which bill they go with. Uh, I think that we are able to say we're in support. Uh, one probably being a little more palatable than the other. The big thing is that it does not change the finance piece for the state because it keeps the same number of paid holidays. It will require some expenditure. Well, it'll require expenditures anyhow because just changing the name in the places that it needs to be changed in and all that's minuscule in contrast to adding a new federal holiday, a new state holiday. Now, this would align with um, schools being off on October 28th. It's already a federal holiday observed. So that is probably the one change I see connecting things. So any other comments or concerns? If not, John, you still have reservations or concerns?
Yeah, I have kind of mixed feelings. I support both, and I think it's I just like the idea of Immigrants Day, given what the nation is going through right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of making a statement. Um, but yeah, I would like to have both personally. Um, but I would support the idea, and then whatever gets worked out at the legislature is, I guess, is what happens.
Okay. With that, commissioners, if there are no further comments or concerns, I'll entertain a motion for support.
Move to support.
Okay. Second, please.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye or raise your hand. Are those opposed express? Okay, I have one in opposition noted. Okay, I do have a majority. So then pro the proposed legislation passes with support and noting one in opposition. Okay, we are moving on to
Pardon me,
Senate
for
Bill.
the
Go
record,
ahead.
was that Commissioner Mueller in opposition? I
Yes,
missed that. Okay, thank you.
yes. Okay. We have Senate Bill 3238.
Senate Bill 3238 relating to language access. This would establish a language access education and workforce development program at UH and appropriate funds. Staff recommendation is to support a large population of Hawaii's population is multilingual and nearly 25% speaks a language other than English at home. So this bill aims to establish a program to help high school students become who are bilingual to integrate into like a literacy and translation and interpreting program. And so it really addresses that need for our community, and we recommend supporting this bill.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or concerns? Okay, commissioners, what is your will and pleasure?
Or
Okay, there is support. Is there a second? I see a second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. All right, then it is unanimous. Okay, Senate Bill 3239, also language access.
So SB 3239 relating to language access. I see there's a typo, I apologize. This is an appropriation bill, so it appropriates funds for the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency to increase access to bilingual resources. Right now, there's a single coordinator for LEP individuals or limited English proficiency individuals. And, you know, for emergencies that might be statewide, this is not enough. So we would recommend supporting this bill to address the issues with communication for LEP individuals.
Okay, let me ask the layman's questions. How is it how are we getting away with not providing that service now? Since it's, I guess the first question was, is there a requirement to provide language access?
Yeah, so after the Maui wildfires in 2023, the legislature passed a law, you know, and that's where the single coordinator for language access came about because they realized they weren't actually able to, you know, connect with a lot of um, individuals within the population that were directly affected. So there is currently a law that addresses this, but it's not enough. A single coordinator for the entire state doesn't have the resources or ability to coordinate effectively. So.
Yes, I'm in total agreement, and in a different capacity, I will say that I'm all too familiar with the like thereof of having uh, sufficient staffing of this particular need. So, uh, okay. All right, commissioners, what be your will and pleasure? Is there a motion for support? I see a motion for support. Is there a second? I see a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, and it is unanimous. Okay, we're going to move on to House Bill 2443.
Okay. So this one's a little bit interesting because I put down the wrong summary and I apologize. In the board packet, the agenda had the correct summary. So I believe there is sufficient notice for what we will be discussing on House Bill 2443. The link in the board packet is still correct. So I believe there's been sufficient notice because the agenda, which lists the bills we are discussing, had the correct summary for this bill.
Okay.
Description.
Okay.
So this relates to disaster planning services. It adds disability related consideration in the planning, preparedness, response, recovery into HIEMA, and it appropriates funds. We recommend supporting this bill. Support for individuals with disabilities should not be an afterthought and where people are scrambling to provide services or access, but it should be part of the planning process. It's notable that 1 in 5 individuals in Hawaii has a disability. So this really addresses and would impact a large percentage of our population.
Okay. Commissioners, is there support? Questions or concerns, commissioners? Okay, I see support. Is it second? Okay, all right. Although, and I see been doubly seconded, meaning that there is unanimous support for this particular HB 2443. Okay, and did we already address the not yet companion Senate Bill 2385?
You know, I
Did
can't
we?
find the difference, but we did discuss Senate Bill 2385, which also establishes, disability related planning in our January meeting, but I haven't quite compared, line by line to see where the differences are. But
Mhm.
I assume it's going to be a companion, but it just hasn't been assigned yet.
Okay, so this means that we have actually approved both, though.
Right.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to Senate Bill 2958.
All right, Senate Bill 2958. It's relating to the residential landlord tenant code. It's slightly different than what we discussed last week relating to criminal background checks. I believe what we discussed last week was a comprehensive background check for applicants to be able to show to multiple landlords, so they wouldn't have to incur the costs of reproducing every single time. This one relates to criminal background checks or credit reports, and we would recommend supporting.
Okay. All right. With that, the companion bill, did we already
We did.
vote on that one? We did not?
No.
Okay. All right. So any companion bill that we agree on, we won't need to revisit then. Okay, so is there support? Or concerns with this? Okay, commission. All right, I see support. Is there a second?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Who enforces this?
That's a good.
Should be at if it doesn't say it in there, perhaps that is a question. Enforcement of landlord tenant. I guess a person would have to file that the tenant would not accept a certified copy. And then because if this is codified in law, they could file a complaint with us, or they may be able to go to HUD equally, right?
So this doesn't amend our statutes because it's part of the landlord tenant code. Most likely it's an individual who will have to, pursue their rights in court. There are
Mhm.
agencies like Legal Aid Society that, help individuals under the landlord-tenant code. So that's probably how this law would be enforced. But unfortunately, a lot of individuals, they don't pursue their rights because it does take
True.
a lot of time and money.
So the question though, I think for the community is, if this did happen, would they be able to come to the commission and file?
No, this
Okay.
would be a right of action under our, statute.
Okay. And here's where I'm trying to connect the dots, right? This is a bill that we are speaking to, yet that we would never engage on.
So, and maybe Heather can speak more about this. She's very passionate about the landlord tenant code. But we do find, because there is such a shortage of affordable housing in Hawaii, and, there's a lot of competition for housing in Hawaii, certain groups can be disparately impacted, by this competition. And if it costs a lot of money, certain groups that they might not be able to afford. So we do see, potential issues with disparate impact for certain groups. Um,
Okay. I'm satisfied with that response. I just wanted, again, I think it's important for us, for the commissioners to be able to express to this community that although this enforcement on the surface is not ours, there may be a element of disparate treatment that would be within our jurisdiction and thus properly placed, a complaint would be able to be placed with us. Heather, am I expressing that correctly?
Yes, Chair. And I would add just a general observation about policy making is that a lot of times an issue is hard to get at. So it may be done kind of incrementally. And I think we've seen that, for example, on the source of income discrimination work, that first they might attempt to pass the bill where it seemingly doesn't have a really strong enforcement mechanism. It would have to be someone that would either be able to navigate with legal aid or, God forbid, represent themselves through the process. But in a subsequent year, we continue supporting that. Then, the move might be to assign a more definite enforcement mechanism, whether it be, some other agency or Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. So I think sometimes that's the way stuff has to get done, just kind of baby steps. So just letting it be known that the commission is in support of this because we recognize, the disparate impact on certain groups of people and the powerlessness of people that are shopping around for a rental and have to pay that application fee 5 or 6 times, and you see that that property is still listed week after week and they're accepting all of these application fees from people, never running their credit and keeping all of that money as like a little side income. It's really not fair. But at the time that you're searching for a place, it's like Maslow's needs, right? Your last thing on your mind is going to be enforcing your civil rights as to those fees. But it's the first thing on my mind. So I'm a huge I'm in support of this bill. And then I think, baby steps, if the commission is also in support of it, hopefully in the future, the policy will, if you build it, they will come.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there support?
Heather convinced me.
Okay, I see support first and seconded. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Okay, and it is unanimous. All right, HB 2370.
All right. Okay. So House Bill 2370 proposes a constitutional amendment guaranteeing payment at least equal to the state's minimum wage, regardless of job type, nature, unless justified by compelling state interest. And, staff recommendation is to support wage protections in the U.S. Have been historically rooted in discrimination, and there's still wage disparities based where individuals are paid some minimum wages based simply because of the nature or type of employment. So this proposed constitutional amendment would reaffirm the state's commitment to wage equality.
Okay. And just on the surface, someone hears that, they may say, goodness gracious, what kind of job is there out there that does not, how can a business get away with not paying the minimum wage? So, a good example of a job that may or may not pay minimum wage is one where there are supplemental revenues provided to the person. So, it doesn't equate to minimum wage when it adds out because they get all these other monies coming in. Uh, what's one right off the top of your head? And I'm trying not to give it away.
Anything in the food service industry?
Amen. There you go. A lot of times folks believe that those individuals are entitled to minimum wage and then they get tips. So in this particular case, what this would do is it would say that regardless of the industry that you are working, that you're going to get a minimum wage. Now, this might incline folks to cut back on tips and such. This would also, though, guarantee that regardless, because some of those tips are not shared with everybody or equally dispersed. Okay, commissioners, support?
With the
All
support.
right. All right. I see doubly supported there. So all those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, I see the movement and it is unanimous. Okay, HB 2588.
House Bill 2588 relating to American Sign Language interpreting. This would establish an American Sign Language interpreter program at the University of Hawaii and appropriate funds. It's not a companion to any of the other bills that we had previously discussed, but I believe it's similar. I haven't compared it to figure out the differences. But it addresses the critical shortage of ASL interpreters in Hawaii, and notes that Hawaii is one of only 8 states without an ASL interpreting training program. So staff recommendation is to support.
Okay. And I can tell you that right now this is a critical need across the state. So commissioners, I would urge support.
Need
Okay.
to support.
All right. Is there a second? Okay. And then I see that this is unanimous. So we have support for the bill. We're moving on to HB 2611.
HB 2611 relating to antitrust. It prohibits algorithmic price setting in Hawaii's rental market and would require that Department of Attorney General conduct public education. Staff recommendation is to support. There's always concerns that reliance on algorithmic property management software only exacerbates discriminatory housing practices and raises rents artificially. Learning models use existing information that may already be discriminatory in its recommendations on the basis that it's neutral. So we recommend supporting this bill.
Okay, absolutely. Commissioners, support?
Yeah.
All right.
Move.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a move and a second. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, so it is unanimous. All right, we're moving on to Senate Bill 2776.
Senate Bill 2776 relating to law enforcement. This limits and sets conditions for requests to federal law enforcement agencies for agreements with those agencies and specified exemptions. Staff recommendation is to support. There are specifics within this bill where any agreement must be in writing if it's with a federal, law enforcement agency. No agreement shall exceed 2 years, and they shall be trained on state constitutional and statutory civil right protections. So staff recommendation is to support this bill.
Okay. And I noticed that it's not here. There is at least one other bill pending that makes mention of agreements with federal agencies. And so I think that this is a good bill here. So staff, is there support? I mean, commissioners, is there support? I see support. Is there a second? I see a second. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. Okay, HB 2607.
House Bill 2607. This is relating to publicity rights. There is a companion bill. We didn't discuss this, but Senate Bill 2076. That's fun. Okay, so the summary for this bill is it protects a person's right to publicity from artificial intelligence and deep fakes. Everybody in the state has a right to the use of their own likeness, signature, and things like that. So this bill would add the terms artificial intelligence deepfakes to the definition of likeness. Staff would recommend supporting this bill. There's been studies where there's a huge gender disparity in the use of these types of AI generated deepfakes and in non-consensual ways, and they often target women. So we would support adding this to the state's publicity statute.
Okay, just for clarity, I know Congress was working on a bill as well, or they may have passed. I don't recall off the top. I know there's been a lot of efforts. So this is great, and there is also, as you said, a target towards. I believe that this is used more against women than men for all of the wrong reasons. So, commissioners, is there support? I see support and a second. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, so it is unanimous. Okay, so we finished that section. So we're going to move into two bills that staff is recommending that we outright oppose. Okay. All right, council.
First one is House Bill 2512. Its title is relating to medical freedom, called Hawaii Medical Freedom Act. It alleges to assert a right to medical decisions without discrimination, coercion, or exclusion. It would require Department of Health to amend its rules. Staff recommendation is to oppose. It would prohibit businesses, schools, daycares, and others from requiring the public or their employees the use of medical intervention unless required by law and other certain terms are met. Medical intervention is defined to include masks, vaccines, swabs, tests, things like that. So our recommendation is to oppose.
Okay, so again, I think that this may have been an effort to remove the ability of someone to say that in order to be in this space, you have to have a mask.
Mask or even vaccine or test.
Right. And that would cripple schools, medical spaces, and all. So, commissioners, is there support for opposition? Okay, I see support. Is there a second? I see a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, and it is unanimous. We'll move on to HB 2513.
Right. So House Bill 2513 relates to health care for minors. It would prohibit medical procedures or distribution of hormone puberty blockers for minors seeking gender transition. Staff recommendation is to oppose. Um, this would also allow for the Attorney General's office to recover civil penalties in the amount of $25,000 per violation, along with court costs, expenses, and would risk the healthcare provider's licensing. So it's very scary for health providers who are trying to give healthcare to these individuals. So staff recommends opposing this bill.
Okay. And this particular legislation is a gateway to I'm sure this has to do more along the lines of someone making a decision for a teenager or something. However, this legislation becomes a foundation for a removal of a woman's decision with respect to reproductive rights. And once we open that can, it's going to be really hard to get it back codified, the choice. So, commissioners, from a civil rights perspective, is there support for opposing this proposed legislation? And I see support. Is there a second? Okay, I have a second. All those in favor will signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. All right, we're going to wrap up legislative session on bills that we recommend monitoring. Are we doing this as a group or individually?
We can do it as a group. I can just read off the bill number and title, and then
Okay,
there's not that many, so. Senate Bill 2936 relating to parking for disabled persons, we recommend to monitor. House Bill 2360 relating to paid family leave, which would require DLIR to establish paid family and medical leave insurance. Staff recommendation is to monitor. House Bill 2510 relating to taxation would establish an income tax credit for employers who provide paid medical leave to their employees. Staff recommendation is to monitor. And at the very end, we just identified companion bills for bills we've already discussed in previous meetings.
okay. All right, commissioners, is there a motion to for support for monitoring the so stated bills? Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay, and it is unanimous. And we are identifying, we won't need to vote on the companion bills that we've already, we will include these for the record. Okay, with that's going to wrap up our legislative session. We're going to resume the agenda. And so we're at the point of announcements, or if there is any public commentary. I don't see any hands raised or public guests on the call. All have departed. Our next scheduled meeting, I think what's proposed, council, can you let us know, do we need to meet next week just to continue about a little hour, a little longer than an hour session of legislative review?
I think for the legislature, we're probably done. We can resume our regularly scheduled monthly meetings if everyone's okay with that.
Perfect. Well, let me say for the record that commissioners, I really, really, really want to say thanks for your due diligence and for your commitment. I know we did go over a little bit of an hour on these. However, it was substantive and definitely important materials that was covered. So with that, I just want to wrap up and say, I know Marcus, we've got some reports that when we do meet in March, we will expect to be a little bit long there because we'll need to get 2 months worth of reports as well as cover 2 sets of minutes. And unless something is going on, we will try to meet at our regular time in March, and we will give due and timely notice. With that, any other unreadiness? If not, then I'm going to have us adjourn at 12:45. Aloha and mahalo, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
Aloha.